It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Get in the van. We're going for our Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how we doing?
I think I just texted Brendan Howe about an hour ago saying, I don't know if you ever covered one of these before, but this is about to be the worst 3 weeks of your life.
Well, I'm sure he appreciates the heads up. I'm glad that I was actually able to ask how you were doing today as well. You know, yesterday I was just like, hey, let's just jump right into it. And then we still ended up going pretty close to an hour, which, by the way, we always give gratitude and appreciation towards the audience. I feel like yesterday, especially though, with the number of views, the number of comments, how engaging they were in the comments, the number of people that were saying that, I spoke pretty well on behalf of the fan base and their sentiments. I appreciated going through the comments and seeing that. I try to be, I'm just my own voice, but I do try to be the voice of the fan base to the best of my ability on here. So I'm glad that it resonated with quite a few of you in the comments. So definitely appreciate the support specifically on yesterday's episode. But yeah, we kind of just had to jump into it, and it's not going to slow down, Alan. We are now immediately in the thick of things in terms of the coaching search. We'll talk about some of the interviews, but first and foremost, and I completely even forgot that this was also today until you brought it up to me, Art Rooney II speaking about Mike Tomlin stepping, like in my head, that had happened yesterday. I got on here and you said we got to talk about it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that was also today, huh? So, I mean, I guess just your thoughts. What was their main takeaways from what AR2 had to say and the process that we're about to go through here?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot there. Let's start with how the process is going to play out. As I think we expected, Art Rooney is going to run this search. Omar Khan will also be involved. He said, not surprised by that at all. Did think it was notable that on his side during the press conference was Omar and also Danny Rooney. I think that's the first time I've seen him. I mean, certainly wasn't involved, didn't speak, but in that sort of setting, be there alongside his father. So I think that's noteworthy. In terms of a timeline, weeks, says Art Rooney, although they certainly didn't waste any time in getting started today. But I just think the way the NFL has structured things with these coaching rules that they can't interview anybody that's with a team that's still playing until 3 days after they've lost, except for the week before the Super Bowl. This is going to take some time to play out. And there is a backlog when these guys do get eliminated from the playoffs. There might be 7 or 8 teams that want to interview them. And so then, they all kind of get piled up on top of one another. So I think this is going to take a little while. It wouldn't be crazy to suggest to the Super Bowl or even possibly after, if you're talking about hiring one of the coaches that's involved in that. In terms of eliminating some candidates, boy, one of them, I mean, Art was asked if there are any internal candidates. Let's be real. There's one guy who could maybe be an internal candidate, and that's Arthur Smith. And the answer was no. Which, I mean, is wild because Arthur Smith is being interviewed for 2 other head coaching jobs now, the Arizona Cardinals, in addition to the Tennessee Titans. So, I mean, that kind of feels like a shove out the door for Arthur Smith. Honestly, I thought and said this morning that there was a chance that he could be back as the offensive coordinator. I mean, given that, I don't even know how that could happen. If you're not even going to give the guy a courtesy interview while you have a head coaching vacancy and he's under contract with your team, sure feels like that was a good luck on those interviews kind of a message from Art Rooney. And gosh, what else? Talked about Mike Tomlin, the idea of Mike Tomlin being traded in the future. He said, Mike said he didn't, he expressed to him a desire to not coach in the near future, and that this decision was mostly about his family, which is interesting. I think that's the most we've gotten out of anyone about that. And so I think, he kind of pushed aside the idea of the Steelers getting some draft haul from Mike Tomlin as it didn't seem like he felt like that was something that was in the cards. He said maybe down the road something happens, we'll talk about it, but feels like that is not a priority for the Steelers right now, and nor is coaching again a priority for Mike Tomlin at the moment, which is definitely interesting. Gosh, I mean, there's so much.
How does that process work in terms of the compensation though? Like, because once his contract were to be set to expire, does that then mean at that point they wouldn't get any draft
Well, I
compensation?
think they can technically hold him to the year that he still owes them. I don't really know how it works though.
Okay.
So I
I've
believe
seen both put out there, and it's
Yeah.
just like
I believe there is a process where they could hold that year against him for longer than the year that's left on the contract, if that makes sense. But then also he could just say, okay, never mind, I unresign and I want to come back to work, and then they would have to pay him again, if not actually let him go back to work. And then are you doing all that so you can get a first round draft pick in 2028? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like that could get messy and potentially like.
I just feel like the Steelers are
that,
not the organization though. Like it was different. Like Sean Payton had a 5-year deal when he stepped down from the Saints. Like very different than a guy on a 1-year contract.
Sure. Absolutely. I did like though, I don't know, do you think that it was intentional for like I don't know how Art Rooney II normally starts off his press conferences, but the good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah. It's one of those things where like it's a perfectly normal way to start a press conference, but also come on. Like I feel like that was intentional. And the other thing, the thing I wrote about in my column that I want to bring up that I feel like was probably the big takeaway is that in a lot of people's minds, the idea of the Pittsburgh Steelers and their 9-8, 10-7 recent past and this never want to have a losing season thing was very intrinsically tied to Mike Tomlin because he is the one that people associated that record with. And I felt my biggest takeaway from this press conference was that no, actually, that's an Art Rooney thing, and he still wants to try to do that more than he ever is interested in ever taking a slight step back. That if the best they can do is 10 wins for the next 5 years, then sign up for 10 wins for the next 5 years because that's what they're going for. Like, this is not a team that is even remotely entertaining the idea of a rebuild, even though they're replacing their head coach. And that, to me, felt like the biggest news of the day.
Yeah, which is, I mean, you kind of said that yesterday. You pushed back on something I said where I said about the it being palpable from the fan base to kind of hit the reset button and take a couple steps back if necessary. And like immediately when I said that, you were like, well, that ain't going to happen, you know, at least by choice, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
if they fail in the process and it goes south, then sure, it could happen, but that's not the desire.
No, that is not the desire. His line, which was actually, I mean, frankly, kind of a bar, was like, why would you ever want to waste a year of your life not trying to compete?
Yeah.
Fire. But like, yeah. So if you were thinking that this was going to come with some sort of big picture organizational reset about the way they approach competing, I'm sorry, it's not going to. They are going to try to win as many games as they can every year. They're not going to ever intentionally take a step back. That is just what the Rooney family has always believed in and what they feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers believe in, and it's not ever going to change.
Kind of going hand in hand in terms of like the Artie Smith thing, and maybe this is what you were alluding to in terms of like the salute and good luck on your future endeavors aspect of that, but talking about whoever the new head coach is going to be kind of having free reign to put their staff together. It did kind of feel like, I know yesterday we talked about the possibility if it was a first-year head coach, maybe some NFL ties that weren't there yet, could Artie Smith stay in place? I mean, just hearing Art Rooney say that, I would assume that you're I don't know that you were confident necessarily that Artie Smith would stay on board, but you thought there were scenarios where it would happen. Do you still feel that there's some scenarios out there where that's the case, or no? Like you put that to rest?
No, I don't think so. And when it comes to Art saying it's important for the coach to pick his own staff, like then why didn't Mike Tomlin for most of his tenure? Like, okay, like I'm gonna go by what you did, not by what you're saying, until you do differently.
Sure. That makes sense. Also, because I'm like scrolling through your timeline here, so I could have like quotes from reading when you're bringing up. I do want to throw in there, completely unrelated, but also did happen today. They just take a little second to talk about this nugget. Adam Thielen retiring from the NFL. Shout out to him. Good soldier when he came in here. Enjoyed the time. Seemed like a great dude. Obviously,
really nice
don't know how many interactions you were able to have with him during his short period of time here, but seemed to be well liked within the locker room in a brief period of time.
Yeah, great dude. Yeah, I really got along with Adam. Actually, it was funny. Was talking to him last week about this moment, and he was like, "Yeah, you kind of think about it, but then you're trying not to think about it." So tough way for it to end for him, for sure. But great career, obviously. One other thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to things they say and things they do, Art Rooney was asked, do you limit your search to guys who fit the blueprint of the last 3 head coaches who were all young, 30-something, first-time head coaches who had been NFL defensive coordinators, a very clear type. And he said, no, we're going to be willing to open this to anyone and anything and, be open, whatever. And so far, there have been 5 people that have been reported as people that the Steelers have requested interviews with, and 4 of them have been young, 30-something. I think maybe Anthony Weaver's in his 40s, but first-time coaches on the defensive side of the ball. Well, I guess technically not Flores. Flores is a second-time coach, but I mean, it sure feels like that's one of the things. Hey, we were open to anybody. Here's the one guy that says we were, and then all the rest are just people who mostly fit the boxes that they were checking before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I guess we could talk about those candidates that we've seen.
For sure.
The first one that was put out there is probably, I want this to happen because of the way that Yinzers are going to say this name. Nate Scheelhaase, the LA Rams passing game coordinator, was the first one that was reported. A lot of people I know were expressing concern, and maybe you can speak to this, about him not yet being in a coordinator role and making the jump already to head coach. This isn't the only head coaching interview that he's gotten. He's gotten with the Browns. He's gotten with the Raiders. Is there one more out there? Maybe as well at this point already in this cycle. But Nate Scheelhaase and also Chris Shula, a name that we mentioned yesterday, both of the LA Rams were the first 2 to be reported. Brian Flores, we fully expected that one. You already mentioned Anthony Weaver being out there. And then Jesse Mentor, the LA Chargers defensive coordinator, are the 5 that have been reported so far. And I imagine that this search is going to be even more expansive than that. But that's a good list to start with for sure, Alan.
Yeah. Let's start with Scheelhaase. I agree that, first of all, I just want that to happen for the name alone. Scheelhaase.
You know what was in my head when I was saying it to myself over and over again? It was like the Maxwell House jingle. Scheelhaase. Like, we need a jingle or a song to happen.
I was thinking Schoolhouse Rocks. Like,
oh wow, okay.
Scheelhaase.
Either way, we're in the same.
Yeah,
we're in the same token here. We need a song.
I laid a list of 19 candidates for this job last night. He wasn't on it because he's never been a coordinator, and I didn't think they would hire a 30-year-old who's never been a coordinator. But I think, Smitty, that giving Scheelhaase an interview for the head coaching position is more about the idea of bringing him and Shula to Pittsburgh together. Yeah. Because I think, as I look at the candidates and the potential ways forward for the Steelers and what I think they would do, that looks about as good as I can picture right now. Like, that feels like the biggest win for me. And I think bringing him in even though they're calling it a head coach interview, I really feel like that is more about, hey, let's see what this guy's all about, because if we hire Shula, this could be a 1-2 punch. It could be pretty dynamic.
I love it. That's what I'm hoping for. That was kind of in the back of my mind as well. Talking to some people yesterday, that's kind of where my mind went as well. We talked about, without including Scheelhaase as part of the head coaching search, we said if it were to be Shula, that's the name to watch in terms of a guy that he would bring over as the OC. Now, I didn't necessarily think like he would get a head coaching interview, but certainly not a bad way to get to know a guy ahead of time as well. So love it, certainly, if that's the path that they were going to go down. Shula, obviously, that last name is going to perk up some ears and ring bells throughout. Alan, I know yesterday you spoke a little bit about him and his candidacy. I actually was speaking to somebody yesterday in terms of what they feel like he brings to the table. This is somebody in the coaching world, by the way, and I just wanted to read this off, what they had to say about Shula. Pretty underrated part of the Rams' success over the years, in my opinion. Started off under Pagano with the Chargers before the Rams plucked him away. Every room his coach has had at least one player boast a career season with him at the helm. Fowler in 19, Floyd in 2020. Pivotal in Ernest Jones' development when he was the linebackers coach. Pretty much gotten the most out of every position he has coached with the Rams. As DC, he's done a great job mixing up what he picked up from Wade and Staley. Leans more into Wade's in the sense of him being a pressure over coverage guy, not blitz heavy, just a lot of stunts, a lot of light box gap and half stuff from Staley. Biggest thing is he is a master of changing the picture post snap, and that's why they were so good for most of the season up until Lake got hurt. Obviously changed a little bit there. Having him back in the mix really brings out the best for Shula's defense.
That's a great call, and that brings into a question that we got here, and I can't find it, of course.
Love it.
Felt like it was
Love when that happens.
About
did it mention Shula's name
in it? About changing the defensive scheme and how here it is from Vincent Hott, who says, do you think their coaching search that an emphasis of maintaining a 3-4 defense will be a major consideration? After all, our entire defense and drafting of players has been designed off this. I'm just curious that we may be set back even further if we also transition to an entirely different defensive scheme on top of all the above. Great question, Vincent. Well, maybe is the answer. I mean, they certainly do not play a 3-4 base defense anymore. They have the personnel to play a 3-4 base defense, but their base defense is a 4-2-5 nickel, and it has been for quite some time. And that's the base defense of almost every defense in the league. So no matter whether they're talking about playing a 3-4 base or a 4-3 base in the future, their base is the nickel. Everyone's base is the nickel, and everybody's nickel is the same pretty much. There are maybe a couple teams that play 3-3-5. I can't even think of one off the top of my head. So there are, like, it won't be that big of a deal no matter what. But very specifically, when you look at the Rams defense, it is very familiar to the Steelers in terms of the structure, especially of the front seven. Defensive backs a little bit differently, but the structure of the front seven with Jared Verse and Byron Young as stand-up outside linebackers, a really big nose tackle in Poona Ford, and Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk as, you know, the sort of penetrating up the field D tackles in the 4-man front, and then 5 techs in the 5-man front. It really does look a lot like what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. And so I think Chris Shula, look, you can't hire a coach because of the scheme, but I think like that might be a bit of a tiebreaker. Like an added point is that they already have all the players to do all the things he's doing in LA, except maybe it's safety where they're probably going to have to make some changes anyway. But like everywhere else, that they look pretty good.
Yeah. Why did the Rams have to re-sign Quentin Lake? He could have just came over with him once we hired Chris Shula and just changed the dynamic here on the back end. He got a lot of money too, though, by the way. Good for him. Obviously, that name would have rang true. I'm sure the Steelers would have loved to have had a Lake in the building, in Quentin Lake. All right, so we'll see on that front. I do love the idea of those two being a duo. I guess the one concern, Alan, would be, and this is maybe it shouldn't be a concern because you're talking down the road. And if you get to this point, things obviously went very well. But would Scheelhaase just be here like one and done, you know, as an OC, because then he's going to get the head coaching look a year down the road?
I mean, maybe. Very few guys are getting a head coaching job after 1 year as a coordinator. And if they are, that usually means you won something pretty awesome in the meantime. So, but it would definitely be a concern for sure.
Weaver was the one we can go to next. I have a quote actually from a player here that was under him that I wanted to bring up as well when I was kind of asking around about him as a candidate, because I think a lot of people just think Dolphins defense, were they really that good? You know, we talked about them going into that Monday night game where you looked at the talent that was on that defensive side of the ball, and it really didn't make sense if you think about it from that perspective, the results that they were getting. But I just think he's a really good coach. And I think that he's highly spoken about in NFL circles. Maybe the results haven't matched it because of the personnel, but what do you make of him as a candidate?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of history in the North. 3 years with the Baltimore Ravens as a defensive line coach and an assistant head coach. Obviously played defensive end for the Ravens. I think he's the guy in this group that is the most of what Mike Tomlin is in terms of the relationship with the players guy. He very much feels like a person that would carry that torch in terms of he was an NFL player fairly recently. And at a fairly high level, was a second-round draft pick. I think he gets guys on a level that is different. Even though he's actually older than some of these other candidates, he's 45. I think his more recent NFL experience, he just feels much more like someone that is relatable to a lot of these players, and I think that helps him a lot. I don't know that he is a guy that has necessarily like strong a tactical background, feels more like a motivator than an X's and O's guy. And I understand why that might not be something that people really want, because that's a lot of what Tomlin wanted. And usually when you replace a coach, you overcorrect the other way, right? Like people get rid of a coach and then they say, well, we're going to do the exact opposite. And maybe Weaver is too much like Mike Tomlin for some people, but I literally got a comment. It was like, well, don't hire him. He's just another Mike Tomlin. I was like, you do realize that another Mike Tomlin is in the top 0.01% of possible hires here. That if the Steelers get 50% of Mike Tomlin, that will have been an incredible coaching process. Like the idea that you're going to do better than a guy who is ninth in NFL history and wins, probably not happening. Like,
so I'd be pretty satisfied with the tenure until I'm like 45, and then I'd probably get upset about the way that it was going. Yeah, that sounds completely fine to me. Well, so it's funny because I was asking this player about Jesse Minter, and they immediately wanted to talk about Anthony Weaver because they saw that he was getting an interview as well, and talked about being there. By the way, they brought up that they should have promoted him over Zach Orr and said that Baltimore would have been in a much better place if that was the case. But they also, they went to immediately what you did. Great coach, better man, nothing but love and respect for him. When I was down in the dumps after a couple years there and was struggling, he was able to pick me up. Really the guy that I would go to every day on a day-to-day basis and just have a conversation with, whether it be about ball or just life in general, or watching the way that he coached. Was the best, though. Just the demeanor that he had and the way that he would lead would be greatly valued anywhere that he goes. Certainly think he's a great asset, and I understand why they're bringing him in.
I think he's a legitimate candidate. I think some people have kind of written him off, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah, and it's not just here either.
He was interviewed by the Ravens and a couple other people as well. The Titans, maybe. He's been around. He's definitely a name in this cycle.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, is it's not just like, because you mentioned the Tomlin thing. I could understand if it was like just the Steelers speaking to him, why some people would immediately go to that and question the candidacy, but it's not just been them. Mentioned Jesse Minter. That's 100% a name that we expected to see within this cycle as well. Him and I'll bring up Flores as well here. We can talk about them individually, but I want to put them collectively for this aspect. I guess the question for me becomes like, the one thing with Flores, other than, whatever was going on there with Tua, I didn't think the offensive coordinator hires were great. And I think that there's probably some question as to how that process would go, like who his guy would be if that were the case. And I don't know that there's like an easy guy to point to for me in regard to Jesse Minter. Maybe there's a name that comes to mind for you there. But that's the first thing that I went to when thinking about, like, again, if it's a decider between Shula and Minter, two guys that are near the top for me, I lean Shula just because I think there's an obvious guy to bring with him.
Yeah, I don't know that there's someone in Jesse Minter's history, and I feel like, did we talk about? I've now forgotten like what we have and haven't talked about. Jesse Minter was with the Ravens from 2017 to 2020 as a defensive assistant and a DB's coach. 1 year in Vanderbilt, then bounced to Michigan as the defensive coordinator under Jim Harbaugh, and then followed Jim to LA, where he's been defensive coordinator the last 2 years with the Chargers. His dad was an NFL coach very briefly, I think, and then also was a longtime college coach. And Mike Tomlin actually coached for his dad at Cincinnati way back in the day. And so he definitely has like a lot of pedigree about things that make a lot of sense. But I don't know if there's someone in that orbit that makes a lot of sense as like this is the guy to be your next offensive coordinator when you're the head coach. That's sort of obvious to pull from. Not that that's necessarily a deal breaker. The Steelers are perfectly capable of hiring an offensive coordinator on their own, but that would be nice, I think.
Well, that's why, to me, I'm going to probably say this several times until the hire is made. It's just the Scheelhaase thing is just so appetizing to me if you can get those two together to come in here. But I still think Jesse Minter, fantastic candidate, whether it's here or somebody else. Certainly think that he's in line to become a head coach. It could also be just somewhere else in the AFC North. If it were
I think to me, if I was handicapping the Ravens, who have a very good offensive coordinator already, that they could just keep, I would. If I'm making an odds board for the Ravens' next head coach, Jesse Minter's at the top.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then B-Flow, Brian Flores, obviously going to do a head coaching look here as well for the Steelers. They had him in the building, obviously liked him enough to do that. I think that they enjoyed the year that they spent with him and vice versa. What do you make of this? I know that we're not surprised by it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you make of it?
I will say, if I was putting together a list of my top candidates, he's probably somewhere in like the 5 or 6 range. I mean, I like what he does on the defensive side of the ball. I think that there is some Tomlin in him in terms of the motivational side of things and the people side of things. And I'm curious to see how that would play out. Yeah.
I love his defense. I think from an X's and O's standpoint, he's actually better than Tomlin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked Brian Flores a lot when he was in Pittsburgh. I thought he was really good. I think the combination of the stuff with Tua, not necessarily great coaching hires underneath him, the chafing with the ownership, which I think was probably deserved, but still happened. I don't know. I just feel like there are a bunch of little red flags there. They're not big waving ones, but they're little ones. And I just wonder, I think he's a really good defensive coach. But I don't know. I'm very conflicted about Brian Flores because I think he, from a coaching standpoint, would be really good. I think my concerns are, as the CEO of an organization, where does that lead? And because it didn't go well in Miami at all. In fact, it went very poorly.
Well, I think it's a specific organization that it would take. And I think this is possibly, I'm not going to say for sure, this is possibly one where it would work.
I agree with that. I mean, I think there are certain there's certain organizations that can handle stuff like that, and there's certain that can't. I think the Steelers are one of them, but I don't know. I don't know. I have a hard time with that one.
So, and again, there could be some
no question in my mind he's a great coach. It's just, I also think a big part of this is like going to be developing a quarterback. And like, there are guys that you don't know about. I don't know if Jesse Minter can develop a quarterback. I don't have any idea, but I think that's different than having tried and notably failed, right? Like, there's just something different about that on the resume.
Yeah. And there's going to be some roster turnover that is kind of just associated with every single year, but potentially a little bit more when you talk about the exit of Mike Tomlin. We'll see what that could bring. But like, also this locker room having the core group of vets within it, or at least for the time being, if you're talking about inserting him in that, I think that he could maybe lean on those guys early in his tenure as well. Again, this is a guy that has been a head coach before, so not necessarily new to that realm. But in terms of like, what did he learn from that first experience to carry over to here, and just trying to learn about the building more so than he did in that 1 year, I think that there's like a group of guys within this locker room right now to lean on in terms of that. So I don't know. That's why I don't think it would be. I fully understand what you're saying, that he's not at the top of my list. I think that he's a legit candidate for them. I don't know that I think he should be everywhere.
If you had to rank the 5 guys that they've interviewed so far in terms of their desirability to you,
Scheelhaase at the top. I'd say Shula, Minter, Scheelhaase, Weaver, Flores.
I think I would say Shula, Minter, Flores, Weaver, Scheelhaase.
Okay. So you have Shula at the top. Do you have Shula at the top, regardless of if it's with the accompaniment of Scheelhaase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I need to learn more about him. I don't know that much about his personality.
Is he the one yesterday that said if you just look at like the coaching resume up to this point, there's a lot of like parallels that can be drawn with Cowher.
No, that's Minter.
Okay, all right.
Shula is, I mean, obviously, his family, right? His dad.
Absolutely.
Oh, very interesting. Let's bring this up. So Shula's dad coached for the Bengals, and I want to say with another NFL team too, right? You guys probably remember him with the Bengals, Dave Shula. No, I guess that was it. It was a Cowboys offense coordinator, and then it coached for the Bengals back in the 90s. His uncle is Mike Shula, who, until this past year, was the offensive coordinator at South Carolina, where there's a quarterback that will be in the 2027 NFL draft.
Yes.
Very interesting there, right?
Yeah.
So now just throw that out there.
And not only is he going to be in 2027 draft, like when we were leading up to this season, talking about potentially for the 26th cycle, we were talking about Lenore Sellers. Yeah.
So I think that would certainly be something. And so I don't know enough, I guess, about Shula's personality. I talked to some more people out in LA to really have a real good feel, but like that's just day one of the coaching search where I'd put those five.
I've never heard McVay talk about somebody from maybe at all, even on the offensive side, but certainly not from his defensive staff, the way that he has about Chris Shula.
I like his scheme. I mean, the secondary stinks. Like they don't have good players. Like they find a way to make it work.
Cheapest defense in the NFL. Yeah. They spent the least amount of money. You want to talk about, we talked about the Steelers with the most expensive defense. You want to trim some fat, get cheaper on defense. This guy's still gotten results despite them not spending on that side of the ball. Yeah. So I think that's very attractive for sure. I'll bring up at least one here from Zach. Said, I assume teams are required to announce who they request to interview, or they wouldn't have to announce. If so, why is that the case?
Teams do not announce who they have requested to interview, nor do they have to announce anything. Teams do announce who they have interviewed, largely because they started announcing when they had satisfied their requirements for the Rooney Rule. And so then they just started announcing them all because it's weird to only announce it when you interviewed a black guy. Like that's basically the answer there. So most teams, I don't know if everyone does, but most teams will announce when they've completed an interview. And if you notice, so the teams have to formally request through the league being the important part there. So the Steelers don't send an email to Les Snead and say, hey, we want to interview two of your coaches. That goes through the league, which means it goes through eyeballs that get to reporters, and then all that gets out there. If you'll notice, it's very different for like John Harbaugh, where maybe like he'll already have done an interview and then it'll just get reported. Oh, John Harbaugh interviewed with the Titans today, and it's not going to be, you're not going to see the same level of reporting for guys who are not currently employed by other teams. So it'll be a little bit different, but yeah, the Steelers said they will announce when they've completed in-person interviews. So you can look forward to that. And, right now, we just have a bunch of requests. And hey, not always. Sometimes these requests don't actually turn into interviews. Sometimes for whatever reason, the guy will say no, or the guy will say, hey, actually, I already did this interview and I think I'm going to take this job, and they never get to interview that person.
Okay.
There was somebody in the last OC search that they requested an interview with that they didn't end up interviewing. I can't remember who it was.
Zach Robinson?
It might have been Zach Robinson.
I remember talking about
who, by the way, is another guy that they could potentially target as an offensive coordinator if they wanted to pair with Chris Shula. They worked together in LA, just not this past season.
Oh, yeah, that's why I brought it up. It wasn't, but it worked out pretty well. We got $5 from Steven 116. So this is not related at all to what we've been talking about, although he gave us $5. So I feel like we got to bring it up. We appreciate you, Steven. When can the Steelers offer James Pierre and Dylan Cook contracts extensions? What do you think about the idea of extending those two players specifically?
Well, there is never a time when the Steelers cannot offer a player a contract extension. The Steelers have their own rules that they don't offer contract extensions during the season. But that's not like a league rule. They could choose to break that anytime they want. So really today they could have offered the contract extensions, but those guys, but I will note Dylan Cook is under contract for next year. He signed a 2-year deal when he re-signed for 20,
which certainly could come in handy as we monitor the health of
cap hit of $1.075 million for a guy who could be the starting left tackle. That's quite a bargain. James Pierre is a free agent, unrestricted. So the Steelers have really, it's not how soon, it's how long, right? They have until noon on March 9th where they alone will be able to talk to their own free agents. Afternoon on March 9th, everyone can talk to them, and then teams can officially sign free agents from other teams starting at 4 p.m. on March 12th.
Okay. Well, hey, you know what? Something else this offseason to look forward to. If this coaching search isn't enough, it's going to get us probably pretty close to all of a sudden we're talking about the Senior Bowl, into the Combine, into the draft, into free agency, into the draft. It's all, but draft happened in Pittsburgh, by the way. I feel like that's been swept under the rug a little bit with everything that's going on.
I drove by the 100 days to the draft sign today on my way back from the press conference.
To wrap up talking about still with the cycle, I just saw that this name requested by the Baltimore Ravens, and I think could be pertinent here. Robert Saleh going to interview with the Baltimore Ravens, a name that you think keep an eye on for? Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was Ben Albright, who's a national reporter based in Denver. He brought up Saleh as an option for the Steelers as well.
Okay. I'm trying to think. What was it? Was it Mike LaFleur, his OC, when he was with the Jets? I think potentially. I know Nathaniel Hackett was on that staff as well. That might have been more of an Aaron Rodgers thing than a Bob Saleh thing. But I'm pretty sure Mike LaFleur was at least on that staff with him there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that would be a legit candidate. I think, he's probably another crack, whether it's here or somewhere else as a head coach, doing really good things with that San Francisco defense, despite, what is it, like, they had 1.7 of their starters, 7 of their 11 starters were out at the same time.
Yeah, they signed some guys off the street to start in a playoff game at linebacker.
Yeah. So, you're of the mindset, legit candidate?
Yes. Yes. If you're going to consider Flores, I think Saleh has basically the same resume with fewer red flags, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He did. It was Mike LaFleur. Followed Saleh from the 49ers to the Jets. So they were together. He was on the 49ers staff before that under Shanahan. So, where's Mike LaFleur? Oh, the Rams.
Mike is the Rams OC. The one guy on the Rams, the Steelers have not requested an interview for.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. Anything you feel like we got to bring up? Anything else we haven't talked about today? These things are going by so fast at this point, and it's going to continue to be like this with how much we have to talk about. So
we need a third show. We do have a third show. We've got Night Shift tonight with Joe Morrison, 8 p.m.
I don't know if that was an intentional way of putting that out there, but it was great. It was a great segue.
We need a third daily show, but we do have a Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Well, perfect. So getting that live chat and have the discussion about these candidates who you want to see, who you need to see added to this list of people that they're bringing in for interviews, all that good stuff. Out until the next one of these tomorrow, if you're up for it, tell people they can find you.
A Saunders _ PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now, sites account, SteelersNow.com. Go there and read the words so I can get paid and sign up for SN Plus. And really, that's actually way better than just reading the words, because you get the words without ads. I get to depend on your contribution to our journalism every month. I am booking travel for what appears to be a whirlwind tour after this season. Definitely going to the Senior Bowl, definitely going to the Super Bowl, maybe more, depending on how this coaching search stuff plays out. And all of that is possible because you guys and your subscriptions, that really is the revenue that I can count on when I'm talking about spending thousands of dollars in travel to go cover the draft like no one else does. I'm pretty fired up about that. Anyone can subscribe and hit the bell for notification. But talking about SN Plus, subscribers only live stream, I think maybe very soon, but I don't have it 100% confirmed yet. So we'll wait to make that announcement. But coming up, so get in, we don't
want to wait too long and then end up having this. I know that Art Rooney II is going to be diligent, and this is going to be a process, but we don't want to wait and then potentially make the hire before we do one of these. And so, yeah.
And maybe we'll have an emergency
better.
one after the hire, or either way, we'll have one right after the Senior Bowl, which will be fun.
Yeah.
And then anyone can subscribe, hit that bell for notifications to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment, which we love, and have a now quite a long list of comments that we're trying to get to, and we'll sort through the backlog. We got a long off season. I promise we'll get to most of them. But anyone can subscribe, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing. We have 17,244 DJ Johnson, starting cornerback opposite Rod Woodson on those early 90s Steelers. Great answer from me. Great answer from me, Smitty.
Najee Davenport.
That's almost as good. That's a very good one.
Had it in my mind immediately. Wasn't
I feel like 44 is a really good fullback number, but I can't think of a fullback that wore it. Of course, Carson Bruner, the current holder of it, and Dirty Red, Tyler Matakevich, had it for quite a long time before that. Derek Watt, that's the fullback I was thinking of. Derek Watt. There you go.
I was right. I should have just said it. Frank Summers.
Oh, yes. There you go.
240 pounds.
It is a good fullback number. Frank Summers, Derek Watt. There you go. There you go.
I'm so mad at myself for second guessing. I was like, I don't want to say this. And
Junk, Marcus Golden.
A
very good answer as well. One season there. Willie Daniel was a guy way back in the 60s, played DB. If you want to talk about unheralded Steelers from the 60s, that's one of them. Jameer Jones had 4 different numbers. 44 was one of them.
Yeah. Jammer.
Frank Pollard also very briefly wore 44 early in his career.
I like Marcus Golden. He was what Melvin Ingram was supposed to be.
That's correct. That is correct.
All right. Good stuff. Let us know your favorite great list of 44s for you to choose from, by the way, for all you out there. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Anything that we talked about today, question for a future episode. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, we are there. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe while you are there. And then you can hit us on the individual episodes on Spotify as well with a question or a topic that you would like to see us discuss. And then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.